All right, the playmaker, the more fun stuff. This is a term, actually, both of these terms, I should give credit to my mentor I mentioned before, Noah LaRoche, who really taught me both of these concepts and simplified greatly how I teach just what a big guy should do around the basket. So the playmaker is really modeled after the Nikola Jokic approach, which is to be an incredible passer out of the post with your back to the basket, to the point where all the defense is worried about your teammates that are going to cut and move and get open shots, and they end up leaving you into ISO one-on-one where you can actually score easier. Where most players' whole approach, and comes from coaching, most part, most players' approach is if I catch in the post, I've got to go bang, overpower two or three people and just dominate and score. When the whole time there was two or three wide open teammates that we could have been kicking out and passing to. So our whole approach is be a passer first. And what I've really arrived at, the reason why this is so effective is what I call the angle advantage, which means that all the perimeter teammates all have a perimeter defender. And when you catch the ball in the post, all four of those defenders have their back turned to you. And so you have an instant advantage of angle, and your teammates, especially when they're going to cut, have an advantage of angle because the ball is behind the defender's back. They're going to turn around to see where the ball is, and it's a major distraction. And so anything we can do to have teammates moving when that natural instinct kicks in that they're going to turn and look at the ball, we call it cut the blind man, which is timing your cut as a perimeter player when your defender's head turns to look at the post where the ball went. Like, they can hardly resist. Like, they're going to look. If you wait long enough, it will happen. When their head turns, you cut behind their head, and suddenly you've created, similar to the dunker we talked about, you're exploiting their instinct, and now they have panic mode, right? They lost you, you're two steps ahead of them, they're trying to catch up, or help has to come. Like, it just causes massive problems for the defense. As simple as that sounds, if we can get the positioning and the angle and the timing to work, like, all kinds of stuff opens up for that. We end up getting wide open layups or wide open kick out 3-point shots because the defense is so caught off guard by a simple cut when the head turns. And because the instinct is so fundamental to just human psychology, that when the ball is passed behind your back, you turn and look where the ball went. It's nearly always there as an opportunity to cut and find advantages, which is why I really like working on this position. No matter what size you are, if you can get comfortable catching the ball down near the block with your back to the basket, and you can get your team on board with moving as soon as that happens, you can just have a lot of fun. And so that's what we're going to move toward, is playing some 3-on-3 out of this and really getting creative with all the different ways we can cut and create openings. And the kind of second layer to this is what's called a split cut, which is kind of touching on a concept we're going to work on in the following couple weeks, which is screening away from the ball. So this just means after we pass to the post, we're going to go screen a guard, and then we both cut off of that screen and move to opposite spaces and all that. So we'll walk through some of that as kind of an intro and just a way to show you more creative options when we're using the post. And then what I started out saying was, when you're a really good passer and you have all this movement around you, you're massively distracting the defense from you, even though you have the ball. And so if you watch Nikola Jokic, what he ends up doing a lot is looking at all the passes, making a lot of assists, and then, second quarter of the game, he's faking passes and he just goes and scores and nobody's ready for him. And so that's kind of the approach I look at. Instead of trying to, again, pound the ball inside and score as a first option, we look at passes first, and when it's open, we exploit it and go score. So we're going to work through really 4 core moves. They all start from a similar setup. We're going to work on outside, inside footwork when we catch. So it's different based on which side of the paint you're on. Outside, inside means your inside foot is free to attack, to pivot and face up. Like, we can do a lot of different things with it. The basic core 4 moves that we're going to work on starts with a crab dribble, which just means you're walking sideways with your outside hand dribbling. And I'll show you each of these on a video in a second. A jump hook comes out of that crab dribble, up and over the front of the rim from the middle of the paint. Up and under is our step through pivot. Drop step is like a spin move. Shoulder roll is like counter move where I'm not dribbling, but I'm actually faking and then pivoting around the outside really quickly. If you watch Jokic closely, he'll use that a lot. It's kind of a crafty move, one of my favorites to work on and get comfortable with. So let's dive into video. We're going to see the team action first, cutting off the post, and you'll see an example of what it looks like to cut with me acting as the defense here, what the timing and the angle of the cut looks like to cut when the defensive head turns. So really we got two angles to cut. First one is cutting middle, what we call a speed cut. Second one is cutting baseline, can also be called a speed cut. Here's where the head turns and he cuts middle. We're just working on that on both sides and working on passes. Should nearly always be a bounce pass out of the post, unless you're lobbing it to somebody that's getting above the rim. So passes in the air are the ones that get stolen. This is an example of the split cut where we're actually passing to post and then screening away to our other guard before we get to the basket. We've got options to do both. We can just cut straight through, or we can relocate. We can cut again. Just working on all angles. Again, by getting the ball behind some of the defense, we open up a lot of possibilities. Another example of a split cut. All right, now into our individual moves. Outside, inside on our court. Fortunately for us, we get to say a Dr. Seuss rhyme. We call it red foot, blue foot. It keeps it consistent, which foot goes when, gets us organized so that we can attack correctly and consistently without traveling or without getting off time with our dribble. So jump hook is what you just saw. Up and under is showing the ball as if we're going to do the jump hook and then stepping really under the defense's armpit. Why it's called up and under. Gets us a great counter move if the defense is really contesting. And then our drop step, go back and see that one again. Our drop step is like a spin move. We're going on the second dribble, crab dribble, we're dropping our outside foot away. And again, our brace for impact concept applies here. We want to get to 2-foot jump whenever possible, especially on this drop step, because we're exploiting the defense so much. They're going to be out of position and recovering back hard. They're going to nearly always foul us. Shoulder roll is the fake where we don't dribble yet. We're keeping our right foot planted and we're swinging our left foot all the way around the outside. So the reason it's called a shoulder roll is we're actually leaning our shoulders on the defense and we're spinning off of their body. So they're braced for impact, thinking we're going to run into them with our crab dribble, and instead we're faking it and rolling off of their body to get around them up to the basket. Really fun move to work on. If you get good at it, there's at least a couple times a game where you can pull that out and find yourself pretty open to the basket.